Let's talk about sports betting. For literally millions of people, it's a huge part of being a fan. It fuels economies, it drives how we engage with sports. But here's the wild part. This global powerhouse is also a complete legal minefield. In huge chunks of the world, it's not just discouraged, it's strictly forbidden. And that's the paradox we're going to dive into. It's this world of crazy contradictions, where a casual pastime in one country is a serious crime in another. So why the massive divide? And where exactly are these lines being drawn on the global map? Okay, so here's our game plan. We're going to start in the places with a total ban, what I'm calling the Great Wall of No. Then we'll try to get through the tricky maze of partial bans. After that, we'll explore the new frontiers where the whole game is opening up. We'll also dig into why all this red tape is there in the first place, and finally, we'll take a peek at the future of the game. First up, let's tackle that Great Wall of No. We're talking about countries where sports betting isn't just restricted, it's completely outlawed. And breaking that law? Yeah, that can come with some pretty severe consequences. And here you go, a look at some of these fortresses. As you can see, they're all over the globe, from the Middle East to Asia to the Caribbean. What's so fascinating is that they all get to the exact same place, a total ban, but they take completely different roads to get there. You know, one of the most powerful reasons behind this is religion. It's a huge driver. For countries like Saudi Arabia, the UAE, and Qatar, this isn't some economic policy. It's a moral and religious command that comes straight from Islamic law, and they enforce it with absolute seriousness. But then, you've got a completely different motivation. In a place like China, the government has a near total ban because it's all about absolute state control. The only thing allowed is the state-run lottery. It's a similar story in Cuba after its revolution. They banned all gambling, seeing it as a corrupt symbol of capitalism. So here, it's not theology, it's all about ideology. Okay, now let's step into our second world, the maze. This is where things get, well, messy. These are the countries where betting is technically legal, but good luck figuring it out. It's tangled in a massive web of restrictions and complex rules. It's definitely not a simple yes or no. And this is a perfect illustration of two very different ways you can build that maze. On one side, you've got Norway. They run a state monopoly. That means one government-owned company controls the entire show, with the goal of limiting addiction and funneling profits back into public services. But then you have Canada, where every single province is its own boss, creating this fragmented, decentralized market where the rules literally change when you cross a border. So the main thing to get here is that even in these so-called legal markets, freedom is pretty limited. You might find you can only bet on very specific sports, like in Japan, where it's basically just horse and motor racing. Or you'll run into these super strict and expensive licensing systems, like in Poland, which are designed to keep competition out. It's a landscape just full of hurdles for everybody. And that brings us to our third and final world, the frontier. This is where the map is changing right in front of us. We're talking about countries that used to have the strictest bans, and now they're throwing open the doors and completely redrawing the lines. And you can't find a better example than Brazil. I mean, they banned gambling all the way back in 1946. This sleeping giant has finally woken up. A law to legalize sports betting passed in 2018, and after years of sorting out the nitty-gritty details, the market is finally going fully legit. It just shows how fast a country's entire position can flip. But Brazil is not alone, not by a long shot. We're talking more than half a dozen other countries, from Argentina to Thailand, that are jumping on the bandwagon. So why this sudden change of heart? Well, it often comes down to a very simple and powerful reason: tax revenue. That and the desire to finally get a handle on a huge underground market. This all leads to the really big question behind everything. Why? What are the actual reasons a country decides to either ban, restrict, or just embrace sports betting? Believe me, it's not a random choice. There are very clear patterns here. You can really boil it all down to four main drivers. We've already seen the power of religion. Then there are major social concerns, fears about addiction and people getting into financial trouble. After that, there's the simple desire for political and economic control. And finally, the constant fight against organized crime and money laundering. And that idea of political and economic control, that's the key to understanding the maze. It's exactly why you get a state monopoly model like we saw in Norway. The goal isn't really to stop people from betting, it's to make sure the government is the one calling the shots, controlling the flow of cash, and making sure the profits go back to the public instead of to private companies. So after our little tour through these three very different worlds, the fortress, the maze, and the frontier, what does it all mean? What does this incredibly fragmented global map tell us about where this is all headed?
I think the most important thing to take away is that nothing here is set in stone. The borders on this map are constantly shifting. And while those fortresses of complete prohibition are still standing strong in a lot of places, the undeniable trend, the real momentum, is happening on the frontier. And it's all moving away from outright bans and toward regulation. Turns out, economics is a pretty powerful force for change.
And that really leaves us with one final big question. As more and more governments decide it's better to tax and regulate this massive industry than to just outlaw it, are we slowly creeping toward a future where some kind of global betting standard is actually possible? Or will the world of sports betting just forever be this game of navigating different mazes, fortresses, and frontiers?